and with great consultation approach, whatever suits us of a target, we have to do, and we can never do enough on many things. So we probably cannot do enough on this topic too. But again and again and again, it has to be a scientific approach and has to be with proper consultation.
The honourable member will have 4 minutes for questions and comments after question period. Statements by members, déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de Winnipeg North.
The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
2017 is the year that Canada has been and will continue to celebrate 150 years of Confederation. You know, our Prime Minister talks about Canada's greatest strength being our diversity, and that is something in which I believe defines us as a nation. There is no doubt in my mind that one of the greatest celebrations of our diversity is held on an annual basis in the city of Winnipeg, known as Folklorama. Every summer we celebrate our diversity through many pavilions that share all sorts of special cuisines, heritage dance, music, so much of a celebration. And this year it was such a pleasure to be able to work with a number of the pavilions to recognize some of those extraordinary Canadians that have made Folklorama possible in some of the more popular pavilions that I participate on an annual basis. So I just want to say congratulations to Folklorama.
Honourable member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
In this sesquicentennial of Canada, we celebrate the values that built this country and made it strong. I was very mindful of this at a few recent community gatherings in Flamborough-Glanbrook, which honoured our history and looked to our future as a nation. Last Saturday, I had the pleasure of attending the 115th anniversary of the Rockton Women's Institute. Speaker, the village of Rockton is the kind of place that embodies the values of community, duty, honour, and freedom that we celebrate at Canada 150. What's more is that the event took place at the Beverly Township Hall. Its heritage, legacy, and the local history on display illustrated these values being handed down from generation to generation. In a similar vein, I also attended the grand openings of Grace Christian School in Millgrove and Bellstone Christian School in Glanbrook. In both cases, hundreds of enthusiastic students and their parents celebrated the rights and freedoms to a faith-based education in Canada, and recognizing the duty in education gives all of us to be good contributing members of our society. Speaker, from what I saw throughout the riding, the future indeed looks bright for Canada past our 150th year.
The honourable member for Egmont.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize two groups of volunteers from my riding who deserve recognition. Recently, the town of Tignish was awarded a gold rating, as well as named champions of the Class of Champions Small Communities category at the Communities in Bloom Symposium. This would not be possible without the leadership of committee members Judy, Karen, Roger, Garth, and Jamie, and everyone in the community who strive to make Tignish a better and more beautiful place to live, with their commitment to environmental awareness and heritage conservation. I also wish to recognize the efforts of the organizers called the Fab Five, Della, Billy, Joanne, Dean, and Tammy, as well as the countless volunteers who assisted in the campaign for O'Leary to be named Kraft Hockeyville for 2017. It was an honor for me to be in attendance at the NHL preseason game between the Ottawa Senators and New Jersey Devils for the presenting of the $100,000 award, which will be used to upgrade their community arena. Congratulations to the communities of O'Leary and Tignish.
Member for Desnethe, Mississippi, Churchill River.
September 30th is Orange Shirt Day. This marks the date which children were taken from their homes and brought to residential schools. Orange Shirt Day evolved from St. Joseph Mission Residential School commemoration event retelling a Phyllis Jack story who had her new shirt taken away from her on the first day of school. The legacy impacts all Canadians. However, the greatest impact plays out in Indigenous communities with disruption of Indigenous languages and cultures, the 60s and 70s child scoop, First Nation, Inuit, and Métis in foster care, juvenile detention and corrections directly relate as to the wide range of health epidemics as seen through high numbers of depression, alcoholism, drug abuse, and suicides today. In the spirit of healing, reconciliation, and hope, it's past time to address policies that infringe on Indigenous peoples across Canada.
L'honorable député de La Salle-et-Mort-Verdun.
The honourable member for La Salle-et-Mort-Verdun. Madam Speaker, this year the community of La Salle-et-Mort-Verdun and the entire Greater Montreal region is celebrating a major event, the 70th anniversary of the Centre Social d'Aide aux Immigrants. a not-for-profit organization in the community. This center helps welcome immigrants and refugees.
During the Second World War, after the Second World War in 1947, with the arrival of Polish Jews to this country. Over the years, this centre has played a leading role in the great waves of Canadian and Quebec immigration. The centre
supports newcomers in their settlement and integration by organizing information sessions, orientation, technical assistance with administrative forms, immigration, assistance, and social support. Day in and day out, the centre contributes to making these newcomers active members of society.
Values that are central to the mission of the centre, such as mutual aid and empathy. I wish them the best.
The honourable member for Cariboo Prince George.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to speak about an extraordinary Canadian who just happens to be a constituent of mine. Her name is Michelle, and we've been friends for a very long time. As many of you know, my hometown of Williams Lake was evacuated during this summer's unprecedented fire season. Michelle was one of the evacuees. But instead of settling into her temporary accommodations, Michelle immediately flew into action. She was volunteering, doing whatever was needed to assist other evacuees. Michelle put in long hours, Madam Speaker, right up until her doctor told her she could no longer do so. You see, Madam Speaker, Michelle has genetic hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and has been diagnosed with congestive heart failure for well over a year, and she's waiting for a donor heart. But you would never know it upon meeting her, and I confess, up until just a few days ago, I only knew her as my friend with the golden heart, a huge heart. I truly had no idea how sick she was. Michelle, I'd like you to know your community stands with you. Thank you for all you do, and we're praying for you, and we love you.
The honourable member for London West.
Madam Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate Fanshawe College in London on their 50th anniversary. As a former alumni from the broadcast journalism program, the college has been an important part of my life. My father taught at Fanshawe, my brother and I both attended the college, and so did my daughter. I was honored to receive the Distinguished Alumni Award, and I also served on the Board of Governors. Hardly a year goes by that I'm not invited back to talk to a class about my career that would not have been possible without the great education I received at the college. I have seen firsthand how Fanshawe instructors, professors, and staff care deeply about their students and the community. London is a great city, in large part because of Fanshawe. Thank you, Fanshawe College, for always changing with the times and always offering programs that produce students ready to take on the challenge of this new world. Here's to another 50. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Charlottetown.
Madam Speaker, the PEI Fishermen's Association has recently set a new world record thanks to a beloved crustacean. We now own the title of the world's longest lobster roll again.
Wow.
For years, there's been a friendly rivalry between Charlottetown and Shediac, New Brunswick. In July, Shediac set the benchmark. Their glory, I'm pleased to report, was short-lived. 2 weeks ago, at the PEI International Shellfish Festival, a whopping 61-meter-long savory seafood sandwich was born. 15 volunteers spent the night baking the massive baguette, and more than 100 more delicately and carefully stuffed it with 12 jars of mayo and 60 kilograms of lobster meat.
I'm hungry.
Festival goers chowed down on the historic lobster roll with funds going to the Canadian Cancer Society, but not before the official measurement, after which Association President Bobby Jenkins summed it up quite nicely when he proclaimed, "Take that, Shediac!"
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, September 30th is Orange Shirt Day, which remembers and honours the survivors of the Indian residential school system, a system that had a profoundly lasting and damaging impact on Indigenous culture, heritage and language, the effects of which are still felt to this day. As we continue to learn more about the truths of the impacts of residential schools on former students and their communities, we must continually seek to educate ourselves and those around us about our shared history. In Chilliwack Hope, we are fortunate to have Indigenous leaders in the Stalo Nation who are committed to moving our relationships forward in a spirit of reconciliation. I'm committed to working with them in those efforts. I believe that reconciliation is not a destination, but rather an ongoing journey on a path that we've set out on together. We must constantly work towards it. I wish to honour those who will organize and participate in Orange Shirt Day events, and thank them for helping us all to remember that today and every day, every child matters.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Madam Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish a good harvest to all farmers across the country. But more than 1,000 households are facing a food insecurity problem. The world population will grow by 9 billion people in this world, and we will need to increase food production by some 70% across the world. And that's why we want to hear the ideas of Canadians when it comes to the food policy for this country. My colleague and I had the honour of crisscrossing the country to listen to the concerns of and solutions from Canadians. We listened, and we will use those comments to put in place a food policy for Canada. In developing this policy, Madam Speaker, we adopted a comprehensive approach focused on collaboration, openness, and transparency. We will do our utmost to ensure that Canada's food system contributes fully to our economy, but above all to the well-being of Canadian families. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
For Ottawa West Nepean.
Madam Speaker, from 1869 to the 1930s, over 100,000 poor, orphaned, and homeless British children were herded into camps and shipped across the seas to the colonies. While some of these children would go on to build new lives, the program was stricken with corruption, poorly implemented, and virtually unsupervised. Children shipped to Canada often found themselves forced into indentured servitude and hard labor, facing physical and emotional abuse from their new parents, who viewed them as disposable, unpaid workers to be discarded if they did not perform. But some of them were fortunate, like the family of my constituent, Anita Nevins, who took in one of these home children who had run away and welcomed him into their family as their own son. September 28th is recognized in Ontario as the Day of the Home Child. I rise today to recognize the contributions of former home children and to express our sorrow and regret to these children and their descendants. Thank you.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
In Lakeland this summer, the top concern was rural crime. In 2015, Canada's crime index rose for the first time in 12 years. The biggest increase was in Alberta. It's getting worse. Small towns and rural areas are being hit especially hard with break-ins and robberies. Rural Albertans are scared and angry. A constituent told me he's been robbed not once or twice, but 5 times in the last 3.5 years in a town of 300. He says, my concern is all the stealing. The RCMP do a fantastic job, but then these guys get to a judge and they're free soon after. I'm just tired of being robbed and wonder what can be done. I know that we aren't the only place. This is happening to vulnerable families and businesses everywhere in Lakeland at all hours of the night and in broad daylight. People are organizing crime watches and trying to protect themselves and their property. Frontline officers do their best but are stretched thin. For instance, a 4-member detachment in one part of Lakeland covers 1,800 square kilometres and 7,600 residents, rarely with 2 on duty at once. I hope the Liberals will act to protect innocent residents.
The honourable député de Laurentide-Labelle.
The Honourable Member for Laurentide-Labelle.
Madam Speaker, it is with a heavy heart that I rise to pay tribute to my friend Arnold Chan. While I did not know him long enough to sign his passport application, he has had a profound impact on my life and my understanding of this job. A year and a half ago, he asked me to join him for a walk in the frigid weather. He needed to talk to me in private. He told me that his cancer had returned. He had just told his sons, he told me, and I quote, "They know what this means." His eyes were open. Arnold always made sure that everyone else was okay before himself, that his responsibilities would never be shirked, that nothing and nobody would get forgotten. He asked me that night to take on his duties of Deputy House Leader during his treatment, and after a year of believing I was doing him a favour, I learned that it really was the other way around. He had, as he had for so many others, mentored me. To Arnold, thank you for your friendship, for your confidence, your mentorship, and your contribution to making this a better place for me and me a better person. To Jean, to the boys, thank you for sharing this amazing person with us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. I have the honour to salute the tremendous work by the Bugarici fashion designer. When he turned 41, Marc Lissard traded in his hammers and nails for scissors and sewing machines to set up shop in Valleyfield. He made it a hub of fashion, like Milan. A visionary, a bit crazy, a dreamer, you say? Absolutely. He decided that his creations would be 100% Quebec, made in Quebec. And he's warmed over a number of people, including me. He was appointed the ambassador for the RMC. He has also increased the activities, offers tastings, did the Yann Perrault show, and helps local artists. He has dressed more than 40 Quebec artists, including Véronique Cloutier and others. And on the TV show Bucarici, he's done so well that he won a Gémeaux lately. Thank you. And thank you for believing in Valleyfield.
Member for Barrie Inniskill.
Chinese Canadians have made great contributions to our country over generations. They're hard-working men and women who invest long hours in building up their businesses. They are an integral part of Canadian society. Recently, we learned of a company in Markham that is producing video games that use racist stereotypes to insult and demean Chinese restaurant owners. I am disgusted by the use of these stereotypes to sell video games, and so is our leader. In fact, our leader, the member from Regina Capel, will be visiting a Chinese restaurant with a member from Markham Unionville in Markham today to show their support for the Chinese community. This has no place in Canada. Conservatives will always stand by our Chinese community and our country's small business owners. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Madam Speaker, tomorrow, September 30th, we encourage all Canadians to wear orange to raise awareness about the tragic legacy of residential schools and to honour the survivors. Orange Shirt Day, Every Child Matters, grew from the story of one child, Phyllis Webstad, whose grandmother gave her a shiny orange shirt to wear at the St. Joseph Mission Residential School in British Columbia. The shirt was taken away from Phyllis on her first day of school, and her connection to her home was severed. However, Phyllis persevered, and now her story is shared so that we can all better understand Canada's legacy of residential schools. All Canadians have a role to play in reconciliation. On September 30th, we encourage everyone to wear orange and to also take this opportunity to learn more about the residential school legacy. Thank you. Merci, miigwech.
Oral questions, questions orales. The honourable member for Carleton.
On becoming finance minister, the member from Toronto Centre signed an agreement with the ethics commissioner, quote, to prevent a conflict of interest situation from arising and to avoid the perception of preferential treatment. It is necessary to abstain from any participation in matters relating to Morneau Chapelle. Yesterday, we learned from witness testimony that the minister's tax increase on small businesses will force many to move money into individualized pension plans, which are a rare and unique form of savings that Morneau Chapelle specializes in offering. Why did the minister not keep his word to abstain from any matter relating to Morneau Chapelle?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Soyons bien clairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's be clear. The SME tax rate is not going up. It's the lowest in the G7. We encourage businesses that they receive, that they collect, to reinvest in their businesses to ensure growth and innovation. Our current tax system has a certain amount of unfairness that allows the wealthiest Canadians to have access to tax advantages that the middle class does not. Our goal here is more tax fairness. The honourable member for Carleton.
The Minister of Finance had a rendezvous with reality. A group of small business people piled in to his town hall meeting in Oakville and told him that his plan will not only pick their pockets, but screw up their life plans. It'll make it impossible for them to save for maternity, severance, a rainy day, or retirement. It'll mean fewer doctors in our rural communities. It'll mean a harder time for young women to get into entrepreneurship. He's going to have to back down from this tax increase. Why doesn't he just do it today?
Right.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. We were elected on the basis of a very clear commitment towards growth for the middle class. All those who were neglected for 10 years under the previous government, who concentrated on giving tax breaks to the wealthiest. That is why, Madam Speaker, we increased taxes for the wealthiest 1% and reduced them for 9 million Canadians, a measure that they voted against. They voted against the Canada Child benefit that's going to help thousands of children out of poverty. We are continuing to work for more tax fairness. The Honourable Member for Carleton.
Raise taxes on Andrew Lovell, the family farmer from New Brunswick, who says now he won't be able to set aside money within his company to prepare for example, a rainy day, which happens on the farm every once in a while. It'll also mean he pays higher taxes to eventually sell his farm to his kids than he would to sell it to McCain Foods, which owns 200 farms in that same province. Madam Chair, why is this government trying to put an end to the family farm and favoring the big corporate takeover artists?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Yesterday, I was in Saskatchewan to hear the representative for the agri-food sector and farmers. We will always be behind farmers and the family farm model. In our proposals, there's nothing that's going to prevent a family member from working in a farm or a business. We want to act proactively and listen to make sure that there's more tax fairness and continue to maintain our support for families and family farms. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-l'Érable. Madam Speaker, whether it be in committee, in the House, or anywhere else, the Liberals have become specialists of empty rhetoric. We have a festival of talking points. The middle class and those who are working hard to join it, the wealthiest 1%, a good agreement, not any agreement. It's impossible to get a real answer from this government. In the real world, crises are real. A simple question, yes or no, will the government extend consultations on its tax reform that is going to undermine real job creators, small businesses, and Canadian farms? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it's worthwhile to remind everyone that the tax rate for SMEs is the lowest in the G7. That's a competitive advantage for our Canadian entrepreneurs, and we support that. When he talks about talking points, the Canada Child benefit when I was younger would have given my mother, my brother, and me over $1,000 more per month. That's not taxable. That's a 40% reduction of child poverty in Canada. We're proud of it. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-l'Érable. A parrot. The problem with the Liberal government is credibility. There's none. Unkept promises, attacks that intend to divide Canadians, words that never become action, and repeated excuses for unexpected consequences. In Ottawa, we want a National League level government, but we have the B team for a garage level team. It's time to change coaches. Canadians deserve better. Will someone on the backbench finally rise and demand that the Minister of Finance stop scoring on his own net against small businesses and Canadian farms? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. It's ironic to be told that I'm a parrot from someone who's reading his question. The government is concentrating on growth, which they were not able to accomplish for the 10 years they were in power. Who concentrated on giving tax breaks to the wealthiest. We are experiencing the strongest growth over the last 10 years. Prosperity and growth are both important. Prosperity has to be inclusive, however.
Je vais rappeler aux députés de Mégantic-l'Érable, il y a eu la patience de la Chambre pour demander sa question et il devrait écouter la réponse, même s'il ne l'aime pas. Alors, il n'y avait pas de traduction.
Oh, there was no interpretation. Is it working now?
People deserve the right to listen to the question as they deserve the right to be heard when the answer is there. So I would ask for that respect.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Madam Speaker, Francophone communities, including Quebec, are really not pleased that Liberals signed a secret agreement with Netflix without guaranteed investment in Francophone content. That's a total injustice for our broadcasters in Canada that have to play by the rules. Even worse, this is going to endanger our culture in Quebec and Francophone minorities. It's not complicated. The Liberals are letting an American company decide our culture for the future. Do Quebec MPs on the other side agree with subcontracting the protection of our culture to Americans? Madam Speaker, our creative and artistic talents are working every day to create unique stories about who we are. Our government will always defend our artists. $1.9 billion has already been invested in arts and culture. We've reinvested in the media fund to ensure production, and we've invested $125 million to ensure that we can share our stories with the world. We believe in our artists, and we are adapting our system to the digital era. The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. The government is talking about a historic agreement, but it's certainly historic for Netflix. As you know, when the cat's away, the mice will play. That's exactly what's happening. There are a lot of people who are really sleeping at the switch here. They have been sung to sleep by the song of American producers. When they promised to fight tax evasion, the Minister of Heritage has signed basically a tax avoidance agreement with Netflix. Who's going to be next? Google? Facebook? With all of the CRA's so-called efforts to fight tax evasion, is the Minister of Revenue pleased that her colleague for Heritage is signing contracts to perpetuate blatant unfairness and prevent these companies from paying their fair share? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. My colleague is giving me the opportunity to talk about all the work we've done for tax evasion and avoidance. We've invested significant sums that have allowed us to get on the right track to go and get back $25 billion. 335 cases were referred to criminal investigations. $44 million in penalties imposed on third parties. We are continuing to work for Canadians, and we're doing what we promised.
Our River.
So, it sounds like the answer is yes. Last year, Netflix said it would continue to, send, hundreds of millions of dollars in Canada. But yesterday, the Heritage Minister bragged about a sweet deal she scored securing $100 million a year. That's about 1% of Netflix budget just for content creation. And this happened at the same time that in Canada, Netflix raised its prices. This is a great PR opportunity for Netflix, and they get to maintain their unfair advantage in the marketplace. A fantastic deal for Netflix. But what did we get?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our government is committed to growing our creative industries. The deal with Netflix is part and parcel of that. It's a huge, huge vote of confidence by a global player for the first time ever to make an investment. It's a vote of confidence in the strength of our Canadian creators. This is a good news story. $500 million over 5 years. We are world leaders, and this has now been recognized by a global player. Nothing but good news here, Madam Speaker.
I remember for North Island Power River?
Well, let's do some math, Madam Speaker. Netflix raises its prices by $1 a month on Canadian accounts. With the millions of users in Canada, that generates about $72 million a year of new revenue for Netflix. To be clear, nearly 3/4 of this massive commitment from Netflix is coming directly from the pockets of Canadians.
That's right.
And we already knew Netflix intended to maintain investments in Canada. So knowing this, will the minister admit that Canadians got ripped off?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, this deal with Netflix speaks volumes to the strength of the creative sector here in Canada. This is a global player who, for the first time, has invested outside of the United States, and they chose Canada. Canadians love Netflix. Netflix loves the Canadian creative sector. This is a win-win for Canada. It's a win-win for consumers. It's a win-win for our creators. This is a good news story. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Our member for Chilliwack Hope.
Madam Speaker, Canadians are learning more about who wins and who loses under the Liberal tax change plan. It's very simple. Mom-and-pop shop owners lose. Family-run restaurants lose. Farm families lose. Big Bay Street firms like Finance Minister's own Morneau Chappelle, they win. Clearly, the minister's in a conflict. He preaches the gospel of tax fairness while sheltering his own family fortune from the harmful changes he proposes. Can the Finance Minister explain why small business owners in my riding should pay more while he and his companies get a free ride?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, we've always been very clear. At this point in our tax system, there is unfairness that is built into the system, and we want to fix them to make sure that the wealthiest Canadians can't incorporate to have access to tax advantages that the vast majority of Canadians do not have access to. Our objective is to make sure that our SME tax rate is low, the lowest in the G7, make sure the tax rate on the middle class is low, and to fix the problems in a tax system.
business owners in my riding didn't make their fortunes on Bay Street. They aren't trust fund babies, and they certainly don't have any taxpayer-funded nannies. The small business owners in my riding are middle-class working families who work hard, take risks, and make sacrifices to put food on their tables and support our community. Why should these families pay more while the Minister and the Prime Minister protect their own family fortunes from these harmful Liberal tax changes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, if he wants to talk about passive investments and investment income that is passive, more than 80% of revenue generated through passive investment go to 1.7% of Canadian businesses, essentially 29,000 businesses. Our objective is not to target small businesses and middle-class entrepreneurs. We want to ensure more tax fairness to make sure that everyone pays their fair share.
Moose Mountain.
Madam Speaker, my constituent Dakin owns a successful local family business. He has managed to raise his family of 6 and has contributed to the local economy through employment. Dakin ruptured his patella and had surgery with serious complications, which prevent him from walking. There were no benefits, there were no sick days, there are no vacations. His wife drives him to work and job sites. He continues to bid on projects and he supervises while he is infirmed. How is it fair that hardworking people like Dakin will have to now pay more taxes while the fortunes of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are unaffected?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for his question. We will always be behind small businesses and behind all our entrepreneurs in Canada who are the basis of our growth. That is why we are keeping the tax rate low for small businesses. We encourage them to reinvest in growth and innovation of their businesses. We will always be behind our entrepreneurs. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Madam Speaker, every year, hundreds of children have an exceptional artistic experience at Le Moulin La Lorraine. This happens thanks to a generous contribution by Pulio Insurance in Saint-Justine that funds their travel by bus. With the Liberals' tax increase that is going to strangle local SMEs, the Liberals are compromising exceptional community initiatives. Why is the Minister of Finance attacking the cultural development of youth in Lac and Chemin by raising taxes, whereas their fortunes will not be affected? The Parliamentary Secretary. Once again, I will repeat that our objective here is more tax fairness, because what we've observed is that some Canadians among the wealthiest, and I doubt that the situation he's described are part of it, are affected by this. These wealthiest Canadians are encouraged to incorporate to benefit from a better tax rate. I'll give you an example. A professional who incorporates who has $300,000 can divide his income to reduce it to a salary of $48,000. This is an advantage that's accessible to only some. These are legal, but they are unfair, and this is the type of problem we're trying to rectify.
This isn't fairness, it's hypocrisy. The Prime Minister was clear on how he feels about small businesses, that they're just tax shelters used by wealthy Canadians to avoid paying taxes. They framed their tax grab on business owners as an attempt to close loopholes for the wealthy 1% and those who live in gated communities, those like the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. The Liberals talk a good game, but their actions tell a different story. While small business owners face tough choices, the fortunes of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister will be sheltered. Fairness. In what universe is that fair?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Ministry of Finance.
Madame la Présidente,
Madam Speaker, we will always be behind the middle class. The first thing we did when we took power in 2015 was to increase taxes for the wealthiest 1% and reduce them for 9 million Canadians. We went forward with a Canada Child Benefit that is more progressive, that is going to help hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty. For 10 years, the Conservatives were giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. Our objective is to help the middle class, to help our SMEs, and to ensure there's more fairness in our tax system.
Yeah, they'll stand behind business owners with their hands in their pocket, Madam Speaker. Right. Businesses thrive on stability, and all they see from this government is fiscal uncertainty. They worry for their employees and their families. Will kids be able to go to university, or will they have to settle for less? What choices will they have to make? Will they let people go or just close up shop altogether? Why is this Prime Minister conducting this assault on the middle class and those working hard just to stay in it?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I think we've been very clear towards Canadians in our last campaign that we committed to supporting the middle class, to reduce inequality, and to review our tax system to deal with certain inequalities in the system. That's what we're trying to rectify. We are doing consultations that will end next week. We are listening to Canadians, farmers, small businesses in order to make sure we do things right.
For Desnete, Mississippi, Churchill River.
We've learned that this government spent more than 110,000 fighting First Nations girls in court. They fought to block payment for the orthodontic treatment that cost just $6,000 to save her teeth. Instead, the government spent 18 times more money fighting her in court. This is sickening. This government promised a nation-to-nation relationship. They promised that the relationship with First Nations people is the most important. How can they stand and repeat those lines while continuing to fight First Nations kids in court?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Indigenous Services and Economic Development.
Madam Speaker, while I cannot speak about the specifics of a case, we know that there are issues with the non-insured health benefits program. This isn't something new. I've met with Deputy Grand Chief Smallboy, Chief Janice Henderson, Chief Patricia Big George, Chief Collins, and Grand Chief Daniels, among others. We are all committed to reforming the system, and we'll build upon the work we have all begun. The Prime Minister and Minister of Indigenous Services are absolutely committed to making improvements to the non-insured health benefits program and are taking other steps towards true reconciliation.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Madam Speaker, the Human Rights Tribunal was very clear. The government must end legal proceedings against Indigenous children who need medical treatment. It's clear that that could be done now. And yet the government spent $110,000 to fight against one child that needed dental surgery costing $6,000. It makes absolutely no sense. Will the minister commit to stopping this legal battle right now to cover those medical costs and end the systematic denial of medical services to Indigenous children? Thank you.
The Minister of Indigenous Services.
Madam Speaker, as I said, I can't speak about the specifics of a case. The Minister and I have been working with partners, and I am willing to work with the members opposite to improve the non-insured health benefits program. The Prime Minister and Minister of Indigenous Services are committed to building positive change and working with all partners to improve the lives of Indigenous Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Madam Speaker, last week I heard from Mike, Chairman of Trimac Manufacturing in Elmira. Mike employs 150 Canadians and had purchased more land with plans to expand his company and add another 100 employees. But these proposed Liberal tax changes have halted all of his plans. In fact, Mike is now planning on selling the land and downsizing his operations. Why has the Finance Minister designed a system that will make Mike pay huge increases in tax that will cripple his business while the family fortunes of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister remain untouched? How is that fair?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Once again, I will repeat. The tax rates of SMEs are the lowest among the G7. We encourage our entrepreneurs to invest in growth and innovation. And you'll see, Madam Speaker, that it works. Since we've taken power, 400,000 jobs were created, most of them full-time. We have a system that encourages more growth and prosperity and inclusive prosperity for all Canadians. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Madam Speaker, most local business owners are part of the middle class. These are people who dedicate their time, their energy, and their efforts to paying the bills and paying their employees before they pay themselves. These are not large multinationals. They are our neighbours, and they are the pillars of the local economy in Lévis-Lotbinière. Why is the Prime Minister targeting our local businesses with a massive tax increase, threatening jobs and the communities that depend on them? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I will repeat that we are keeping tax rates low for SMEs. We know that SMEs are important for the Canadian economy, and we will always be behind our entrepreneurs. The only thing is that we've observed in our tax system there are systemic unfairness, and they encourage the wealthiest to incorporate and access tax advantages that most people in the middle class, that my constituents, his constituents, do not have access to. We are going to reform the tax system to ensure a bit more fairness.
For Lakeland.
Madam Speaker, more than 110,000 energy workers lost their jobs since 2015. The Liberals are making it worse. 70% of oil and gas service and supply companies are small businesses. They've been hit especially hard. The Liberals already added red tape and more costs. Now they're planning to kick them while they're down with a huge tax hike, while sheltering the finance minister's billion-dollar family business and the PM's family fortune. That's not fair. Why are the Liberals making it so much harder for struggling small businesses?
The honourable member, Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I've said many times in the House, we've been able to do what the Harper government could not achieve in a decade. We have approved infrastructure projects that will create tens of thousands of good-paying middle-class jobs across Canada. And let me tell you what some of those jobs are, Madam Speaker. Nova Gas Pipeline, 3,000 jobs. Line 3 replacement jobs, 7,000 jobs. Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline, 15,440 jobs. And Madam Speaker, I could go on and on. These projects and others will create more than 38,000 good-paying jobs in Canada.
I just want to remind the members of the official opposition that they have an opportunity when they're asking the questions to have the respect of the House, and I expect that you in return will allow that respect to flow through this House. The member for Barrie-Ennisville has been screaming quite a bit throughout, and I just want to say that it's not acceptable. And to allow the government side to answer the question, even though you may not be in agreement with that question, they still deserve that respect. The honourable member for Lakeland.
Well, I asked about taxes, but yesterday the minister agreed with me that natural resources drive Canada's economy. But since he started his job, more Alberta energy workers have lost their jobs in nearly 40 years. More than 600,000 Canadians work in energy. More than 6 of them have lost their jobs under the Liberals. Energy is the biggest private sector investor in Canada, but under the Liberals, it's had the biggest 2-year decline in 70 years. Now they'll hammer them even more with this new huge tax grab. When will the Liberals actually walk their talk and champion Canadian energy small businesses?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as I said a moment ago, I could go on and on about job creations. Canadian knows that strong action on the environment is good for our economy. It makes us more competitive, it fosters innovations, and reduces pollution. Our support for the energy sector reflects a balanced approach that ensures the environment is protected and we continue to create good, well-paying jobs for Canadians, many of which are in Alberta. After 10 years of inaction by the Harper Conservatives, we have approved pipelines, creating tens of thousands of good-paying middle-class jobs across Canada. Our approach builds communities.
The honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Madam Speaker, today the CAMI strike continues in Ingersoll, where workers' jobs are currently threatened with relocation to Mexico. The jobs that are at risk sustain workers' families, the region, and Madam Speaker, these good manufacturing jobs sustain this country. They must be kept in this community. The loss of terrain production cost more than 400 jobs, and now a second line is at risk. Yet the Liberals are still missing in action. These workers are standing up for all workers in this country. When will this Liberal government stand up for them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Innovation and Science.
Madam Speaker, we obviously as a government understand the critical importance of the automotive sector in Canada and with respect to Canada's economy. Our government is committed to keeping Canada's automotive sector globally innovative and globally competitive. We've recently launched the Strategic Innovation Fund to continue to attract and support new high-quality investments in a number of sectors, but in particular the automotive sector. So our strategy, Madam Speaker, is to continue to support this sector as we move forward in light of the current context, and we'll continue to put our money where our mouth is.
The honourable member for Courtenay Albany.
The Liberal government says its most important relationship is with Canada's Indigenous peoples. Well, Madam Speaker, while they're fighting young girls in court to stop dental procedures, they're also denying the Nuu-chah-nulth nations the rights to catch and sell fish on their traditional lands. The Nuu-chah-nulth won and reaffirmed their rights at the BC Supreme Court 8 years ago. Madam Speaker, they don't want to be in court, they want to be on the water fishing. When will the Liberals stop dragging their feet, finally honour their commitment to Indigenous people, and respect their legal rights?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Madam Speaker, I had the pleasure to attend many Indigenous communities over the summer and visit and understand the very close and important relationship that our Indigenous peoples have with fish. That's why our government is investing over $250 million over the next 5 years to make sure that there is access to fish and to have the capacity to fish. That includes more than $60 million on an ongoing basis. These commitments are already working to create real middle-class jobs in the fishing sector for our Indigenous communities. Over 2,800 middle-class jobs to date, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, poverty is an issue that all governments work to address. The last federal government achieved next to nothing in reducing the poverty rate in Canada. I was glad to see our government introduce the Canada Child Benefit in Budget 2016. This is a great help for the families in my riding of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. Could the minister inform us on the next steps toward his mandate to create a poverty reduction strategy? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you very much to the member from Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill for that question and for her focus as well on seniors' poverty. Every Canadian deserves a real chance at success and to retire with dignity. And this is why, since we've taken office, our government has taken significant and concrete action to reduce poverty in this country. In fact, the minister hosted a national poverty conference this week to engage stakeholders and people with lived experience to find out how we can do even better on this subject. Our government will soon be delivering the first ever Canadian poverty reduction strategy, which will tackle the impacts of poverty and in particular the impacts that racism and sexism have on this sector. We'll be setting clear targets and having clear...
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Madam Speaker, Theo Custers and his wife Gertie immigrated to Canada and have worked hard all their lives. They run a dairy farm in my riding with their son Martin and their daughter-in-law Elsie. Theo was planning on passing his business on to his son, but under this new Liberal tax grab, the tax bill for retiring farmers will be significantly higher if they sold to their son rather than to a large corporate entity. Why has the finance minister designed a tax system where Theo's family will pay significantly higher taxes, while the family fortune of the Prime Minister and the finance minister won't be touched? How is that fair?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. We have listened to farmers and met with representatives of the agricultural sector. I can assure you that we will listen to the sector's opinions when we formulate our plan. Our priority is to ensure tax fairness while avoiding unintended consequences for our hard-working farmers. I can assure you that our government will not change the tax advantages that help family businesses grow and create jobs. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Member for Montmagny, Les Lake Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Madam Speaker, I'd like to talk to the Minister of Finance. A car dealership in my riding is going to invest $5 million this year to expand and to create more jobs and create more clientele. This type of investment would not have been possible if the owner had not been able to make long-term investments, which the Liberals now want to tax with their unfair reforms. Why does the government want to penalize job-creating businesses in Quebec, including in my riding? Well, the family fortunes of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister won't be affected. I would just remind the member, because it's been twice now, that it's not acceptable to make reference to a parrot, because that's a personal attack. So I just wanted to warn you about that. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think the member's lack of respect does him dishonor. I know he can do better. I would like to reassure business owners who are listening to us that our objective is greater tax fairness. We're keeping the tax rate low for businesses because we know that that's important for the economy. We know that they contribute to growth. We want to create growth, and that's what we've been trying to do since we were elected. 400,000 new jobs, the strongest GDP growth among G7 countries. These are results that they never managed to get. We are staying on track to have greater tax fairness.
McMurray Cold Lake.
Madam Speaker, my office has been flooded with calls from small business owners regarding the Liberal small business tax hike. Times are difficult in Fort McMurray Cold Lake, and businesses can't afford a new massive Liberal tax on investment. Everyone I've spoken to all agree this is just a reckless tax grab. So why is someone like Brad Musat, who owns Lackbridge Ford, being hit with a huge tax hike when the finance minister and the prime minister have family fortunes and businesses that won't be affected? How is that fair?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I would remind the member that we are currently in a consultation period. We're listening to Canadians to make sure that we do things right. We don't want to have any unintended consequences to these changes. The fact is that our current tax system involves some inequalities, and that means that some of the wealthiest Canadians have access to tax advantages that the vast majority of Canadians do not have access to. We will always support small businesses and the middle class. And I would remind him, Madam Speaker, that they voted against many measures which would have helped the middle class.
Oxford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, the new Liberal tax hikes on local businesses are set to make life very hard for farm families, young entrepreneurs, and local business operators. Why did the Finance Minister design a system by which farmers and local businesses in my riding will pay significantly higher taxes, while the family fortune of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister's family fortunes won't be touched? How is this fair for hardworking Canadians and their families?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Once again, I would say that as long as money is being invested in the business, in growth, well, there won't be any change. We still have the lowest tax rate among G7 countries for small businesses, and we know that we want to create a competitive environment for small businesses. The only thing is that in our current system, there are inequalities that encourage certain of the wealthiest Canadians, not the middle class, but wealthy Canadians, to incorporate and have access to tax advantages that the middle class doesn't have access to. We think we can do better, and it can be fairer.
Member for Regina Louvain.
Madam Speaker, the new Minister of Public Services and Procurement has yet to agree to appear before the Government Operations Committee. As Vice Chair of that committee, I'm wondering when this government will respond to the all-party report we tabled more than 9 months ago calling on Canada Post to restore door-to-door mail delivery. Or should Canadians write "return to sender" on the Liberal platform as broken promises pile up faster than junk mail around a community mailbox?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Well, of course, Madam Speaker, our government has delivered on its promise and its commitment to suspend implementation of community mailboxes and to undertake a comprehensive review of Canada Post, and the member knows that very well because he participated in that very review, the review undertaken by the Committee on Government Operations, accompanied by a special task force. We have their reports. We have all of the evidence. The government is considering the future of this treasured national institution that is Canada Post and its employees, and we will report to the House this year.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Madam Speaker, because of delays in processing for income tax returns, families in my riding are often losing 6 or 7 months' worth of benefits before receiving their Canada Child benefit. It's totally unacceptable. These families are already working very hard, and this is making their lives even more precarious. Perhaps the Liberals should wake up before they end up with another Phoenix-style fiasco on their hands. Will the government take this seriously and hire more staff for the CRA? That would help meet families' needs because they're just working hard to make ends meet. The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. The CRA offers quality services to Canadians. It's unacceptable that certain Canadians don't get their credits and benefits within a reasonable time period. These credits and benefits are an important part of the budgets for many Canadians who are living in a vulnerable situation, and we are doing everything we can to make them more accessible. I would remind how important it is for Canadians to prepare their income tax returns so that they can have access to those credits and benefits that they're entitled to.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Andrew and his wife risked everything to open a small coffee shop in Vernon. They built a life plan based within Canadian tax laws. Now this Liberal government is threatening to tear up their life plan, changing the law and killing their initiative to be independent. Why has the Finance Minister designed a system by which Andrew and his wife will pay significantly higher taxes while the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister's family business fortunes won't be touched? How is that fair?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, the fact is that our current tax system includes some inequalities. And this means that some of the wealthiest Canadians can be encouraged to incorporate to have access to tax advantages that the middle class don't have access to. We think we can do better. We don't think it's fair that for a professional who has $300,000 a year, he can incorporate and save a huge amount of money every year. We support our small businesses and our middle-class entrepreneurs, and we always will be.
Caribou Prince George.
Chair, that a billionaire finance minister and a millionaire prime minister's trust fund and fortunes will be protected under these current changes. That's not fair, Madam Speaker. Ranching and forestry are economic drivers of communities throughout British Columbia. Evan, a rancher in my riding, stood beside his family and his neighbours and courageously fought back the fires. They save properties and lives. He asked me this recently. With the devastating fire season we have just come through and all we're dealing with, and now the tax changes that are being proposed by this government, our ranchers don't stand a chance. When will the finance minister abandon these tax changes and start standing up for foresters and ranchers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we were elected on a very clear promise to the middle class and to our small businesses. That's why we're keeping the lowest tax rate for businesses in the G7. We're encouraging them to invest in their businesses for growth and innovation. The only problem is that in our current system, we're not targeting small business owners, but very wealthy Canadians who have access to these tax advantages. That's what we want to fix. That's why we're consulting to make sure that we're doing things right. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
A member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I recently asked about how this government's proposed tax changes would affect farmers using AgriInvest, and it was obvious by the Parliamentary Secretary's answer that he has no idea how AgriInvest works. AgriInvest is a self-help tool that allows and encourages farmers to put money away for a rainy day. In essence, Madam Speaker, it is a way for farmers to get their income from the marketplace and not from their mailboxes. But now the Finance Minister wants to triple the tax on something that the Agriculture Minister has urged farmers to do. Just tell me, how the heck is that fair?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture. Federal, provincial and territorial representatives for agriculture came to a framework agreement. The Canadian Partnership for Agriculture will come into force on April 1st, 2018. It will strengthen farmers' and producers' ability to compete worldwide. This partnership is investing $3 billion over 5 years in science and innovation, as well as trade, environment, and industries. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, with its new national defence policy, the government has acknowledged that when it comes to the military, people are our most precious resource. But last year, the Auditor General indicated that the armed forces were facing a dire shortage of staff and that the problem was actually getting worse. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence inform this House of the efforts undertaken to reverse this trend and ensure that our regular and reserve forces are strong, notably in Quebec, and everywhere else in Canada too? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, tomorrow Canadians will be able to see the exceptional work that reservists do here in Canada and abroad. On Saturday, September 30th, all of the units of the reserve forces will be opening their doors to Canadians. This initiative is part of the Army's efforts to recruit new members and reservists. This is a unique opportunity to meet soldiers in their working environment and to learn more about their important contribution. I invite all of my colleagues to promote this event so that this Doors Open event will be a big success.
Senator Lanigan.
Madam Speaker, we have just learned that a government employee from CRA has been suspended for 6 days for taking home over 1,000 files. Canadians need to know whether their personal information has been compromised. My question to the Minister, can she please inform this House of what information the government may have about the theft of these sensitive files?
The Minister of Natural Revenue.
Madam Speaker, I want to reassure my colleague that confidentiality is our #1 priority. I am not aware of the case that my colleague has just mentioned, but please rest assured that we are doing everything necessary, Madam Speaker, to ensure that people's data is confidential.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Madam Speaker, the dream of home ownership seems to be moving further and further away for middle-class Canadians in my riding of Scarborough-Guildwood. While many of my constituents try to save for what will likely be the biggest investment in their lives, we continue to see stories of rampant speculation by certain individuals who cheat the system. Would the Minister of National Revenue update the House and all Canadians on the progress made to crack down on those who do not comply with real estate tax laws?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue.
I want to thank my colleague for that important question. Our government recognizes the importance of a fair housing market for all Canadians. We have increased the agency real estate audits in the Vancouver and Toronto markets. These audits found over $275 million in reported income. We have applied over $20 million in penalties through these audits. Let me be clear, tax evaders can no longer hide.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Madam Speaker, the Public Safety Minister is closing down the Canada Border Services office in my riding of Oshawa. Oshawa is investing millions of dollars in their runway infrastructure to make our community more competitive, while the Liberals continue to introduce policies that do the exact opposite. There was no consultation on this Liberal decision until after the fact, Madam Speaker. Local governments have been trying to reach out to the Minister, but have received absolutely no word as to why the CBSA office is being shut down in my riding. Will the Minister explain why he has decided to negatively impact Oshawa's growth as a transportation hub and kill local jobs and future opportunities?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, our officials did talk with the City of Oshawa, with the Mayor, and made it very clear that services are going to be improving. That, in fact, in Oshawa, there are going to be more Canadian Border Services agencies available to process goods and services and passengers. So I'm pleased to say that for Durham Region and Oshawa, this is a material improvement, and it is good news.
The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Madam Speaker, the government won't stop attacking former Aveos employees. They made them lose their job in 2012 by refusing to enforce the Air Canada Act. They even changed the law last year to ensure that they wouldn't be able to get their jobs back. And now the government is chasing after them to get back the employment insurance payments they were paid 5 years ago. My question for the Minister is, will the government stop persecuting the 400 former Aveos employees and cancel their employment insurance debts?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. On the question of Aveos employees, they are in a delicate situation.
Working together to offer flexibility and options to ensure people are treated fairly and respectfully as we move to correct the situation and address individual cases as they appear.
Honourable Member for Mirabel. This is ridiculous, Madam Speaker. This file has been sitting on the Minister's desk for 4 months. Once again this week, while in a limo, he's sending collection agencies to harass former Aveos employees. And it's not that there isn't enough money. There's a surplus of $1.4 billion in the EI fund. $1.4 billion in surplus, and he can't find $4 million to correct an injustice that he himself created. What is the government waiting for to fix this and to give justice to these employees?
Mr. Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
I recognize that former Aveos employees are in a very delicate situation.
This is a very significant issue, and we are working very hard to address it. But in this situation, according to EI regulations, the Employment Insurance Commission of Canada has the authority to write off these overpayments, and they do so on a case-by-case basis. This is something that we are working hard to address and have worked with officials in that jurisdiction to make sure that we address it as quickly as possible and as fairly as possible.
Honourable Member for Mirabel. Madam Speaker, no one wants to take responsibility for this issue. 4 months is how long it took to change the law and ensure that these former employees lost their jobs forever. But then when it comes to stop harassing them, well, it's too complicated for the government. I have an email from the PMO, the same Prime Minister who stood with Evios employees 5 years ago. And what did he say to the Evios employees? Well, now he's saying that it's the minister's responsibility. It's the minister who should lose his job. So when is the debt going to be cancelled?
Our department and the Canada Revenue Agency are working together to offer flexibility and options to ensure that people are treated fairly and respectfully. We know that, and the House knows that the Social Security Tribunal is an arm's-length judiciary process that deals with these cases on a case-by-case basis. We are working hard to make sure this situation is addressed properly and fairly, and we'll be reporting back to the House when new developments occur.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Clearly, the Liberal Party is very far from the ordinary people and isn't there for them. Now, this is a question for the Minister of Heritage. We can see that foreign internet companies who want to do business in Canada can count on the Minister and on the federal government. Netflix, Google, Spotify, Amazon, and those types of companies will have it easy compared to Quebec companies. This is total submission. This is the colonization of our digital assets. How can the minister justify giving an advantage to foreign companies and rewarding tax delinquency when she would never do this for Quebec companies? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, perhaps the Bloc Québécois doesn't like our government's vision about our creative industry, but we think it's important. The SOCAN congratulated the minister on her initiative because it showcases how important our music creators are, and other organizations have the same opinion. The Minister of Heritage's vision is to have Canada as a key player on the world cultural stage.
Fin de la période de questions. Monsieur Marcin, est-ce que vous avez un point d'ordre?
That concludes question period. Mr. Marcil, are you rising on a point of order? Yes, point of order. I seek the unanimous consent to table the email from the Prime Minister's office. Is there unanimous consent to table? There is no unanimous consent.
Tabling of documents. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Introduction of private members' bills. First reading of Senate public bills. Motion.
Motions.
Présentation de pétitions.
Presenting petitions.
London Fanshawe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have two petitions today to present to the House. The first is from a group of very concerned young women and men who would like the Government of Canada to support free prescription birth control. 15% of Canadians have no contraception at all, and a significant number of Canadian women cannot afford